Welcome back to the Apollo 13 campaign in Reentry. Previously, the crew were eager to get their hands on the procedures for entry. However, as the procedures were in development, they were unable to provide it to the crew yet. However, they did receive an entry timeline up to entry interface, and now the mission control are ready to read up the procedures to the crew of Apollo 13. So let's get started.
Hello, Aquarius, Houston. How do you read?
Okay, very good, Ken.
Okay, let me take it from the top here. Just there might be some overlap, but to make sure we're all on the same signal. We're starting off with a set of timeline procedures that are going to give us end up with the normal entry checklist. There will be some checklist changes into the book, but the bulk of what I have for you is the timeline stuff. And it starts at 6 hours and 30 minutes prior to EI, and assumes that we're getting LEM power to main B of the command module. I think you already have the numbers for the LEM pads and the command module pads, the types of pads we'll be giving you. And if you have a question on what they'll be doing or what they're for, I can go over those now or when we get through.
Okay, yeah, I'll make a little note there, and we'll discuss it when we get everything copied, huh?
All right. And the first item then, after you get ready to start the checklist, is to install lithium hydroxide canisters and the stow ordeal. Panel 8, we want to turn the floodlights to fixed.
Okay, wait a minute, you're going too fast here.
So all of these procedures will be available with custom mission checklists, so you can load them up into the checklists tab for the mission. So there's no need to write these down on a piece of paper unless you really want to. Let's get going.
Okay, I'll tell you, I'll go a line at a time and wait for your verification before I go on to the next one. I have panel 8, floodlights, fixed.
And once again, I've added some of these procedures as text, so you'll know what to write if you decided to do that.
Okay, that's the panel 8 floodlights. Now we're going to take panel 5 and put the floodlight rheostat to flood, and the LEB, that's panel 100 floodlights, are also going to fixed. The purpose of this is to balance up buses A and B. Okay, on panel 8, circuit breakers, EMS, main A and main B. That's 2, open. On panel 250, circuit breaker, battery A, power, entry and post landing, closed. Okay, the same for circuit breaker, battery B, power, entry and post landing. Okay, and add battery C, power, entry and post landing. On panel 5, circuit breaker, bat charge, battery A, charge, closed. Okay, and the same for circuit breaker for battery charge, bat B charge, closed. All right, I'd like to take main bus ties, 2 of them, on and up. That's probably a verify. Circuit breaker, battery relay bus, battery A and B, closed. Circuit breaker, EPS, sensor, signal, main A and main B, closed. Okay, on panel 275, circuit breaker, main A, battery C, closed. On panel 276, circuit breakers, Instrumentation, power control. 3 and 4, open. Okay, panel 5. Circuit breaker. Essential instrumentation power. Main B, closed. We want to put the primary and the secondary evaporator water control valves to auto. Alright, the next step after your water control valves is to perform the CSM RCS preheat. Do that on page E1-5, steps 35 and 37. Now back to panel 5. Circuit breaker. Caution and warning. Main B, closed. On panel 2, caution and warning power to 1. On panel 5, circuit breaker. EPS sensor unit. DC, bus A and B, closed. On panel 3, main bus, A and B. Go to reset and leave it in the center. Now we're at EI minus 5 plus 0.5. And as far as you're concerned, Jack, the command module using this for information only. This will be the LEM doing an Earth Terminator AGS alignment. And at the time of 5 plus 0.5 is the time they'll be going ahead and releasing their ball. And this will be covered in the LEM checklist. It'll be uplinked after this. At EI minus 5, we perform mid-course number 7. Over.
Okay, and this is what we saw on the timeline in the previous mission. So we have mid-course correction number 7 planned at entering phase minus 5 hours. That is at 13740 in the mission timer.
At the completion of mid-course 7, the LEM will maneuver to a separation attitude. And this attitude will be set up on one of the pads that you're going to get before all the sequence starts. And it'll be flown to the LEM ball angles on that pad.
Right, so then we'll maneuver to the separation attitude after mid-course correction 7.
At EI minus 4 plus 40, we want to perform page 1-6, step 39 of the entry checklist. The next is the command module RCS activation. And that's step 4-1 of page E1-6. The next is at EI minus 4 plus 30. We want to verify that the LEM is configured for a command module RCS hot fire. Now to panel 5, circuit breaker, GNN, IMU heater, main B, closed. Panel 1, rotation control power normal. That's 2 of them, to AC, DC. On panel 7, SCS logic power 2/3 on. Back to panel 2, RCS command on. Now the command module RCS check, or step 4 of page E2-1. Okay, at this point we want to lock the rotation hand controllers. On panel 8, sequential pyro arm to arm. Okay, now the next event is going to be the separation of the service module. And these are some limb steps, but so that you'll know what's going on, I'm going to read them to you. The limb will do a limb plus X of 1/2 foot per second. Then you'll be hitting the CMSM set on and up on their command. As soon as we're free of the service module, the limb will do another limb minus X for 0.5 feet per second. This is called the push-pull maneuver. At the completion of that, we go back to panel 8, and it's sequential pyro arm, both of them, to safe. Okay, and following this, we take sequential logic to off. Okay, then following this, the limb will pitch up to acquire the moon, they're going to pitch up and acquire the service module and photograph. And they'll be using the ACA for rotations from now on. Okay, now we're down to EI minus 3 hours, the next time event. And the limb starts a maneuver to what we call the moon view attitude. This maneuver is designed to place the command module optics pointing with 00 at the moon. And it'll be flown to on the limb ball angle. Okay, now we're going to panel 5. And it's circuit breaker, GNN, computer, main B, closed. And what we want to do is to put the computer to standby. If you come up with a 3706, you'll have to do an enter in order to get the code 62. If it's got 62 on it, you can do a proceed until the diskey blanks. Now we're at EI minus 2 plus 30. We're going to panel 5. Circuit breaker. Essential instrumentation, main A, closed. Now circuit breaker, GNN, IMU heater, main A, closed. CB, LEM powers, 1 and 2, open. CB, GNN, computer, main A, closed. I got it out of sequence. Would you put that computer main A ahead of LEM power? That's correct. Jack, what we're doing is we've had the LEM powering main B, and we've had all these particular loads on it, and we're getting ready to secure LEM power. So we wanted to make sure that essential things like the computer and the platform and all have dioded power supplies before we remove the LEM power. Now, panel 275, circuit breaker, main B, battery bus B, closed. Circuit breaker, inverter power, 1, 2, and 3, closed. On panel 5, circuit breaker, battery relay bus, battery A and B, closed. Circuit breaker, inverter control, 1, 2, and 3, closed. On panel 3, AC inverter 1, main A. Now AC inverter 1, AC bus 1, on. And we're going to also put AC inverter 1, AC bus 2, on. Back to panel 5, circuit breaker, EPS sensor signal, AC 1 and 2, closed. Circuit breaker, EPS sensor unit, AC 1 and 2, closed. And circuit breaker. Caution and warning. Main A closed. Panel 3. AC inverter. AC bus 1 and 2. Reset and back to the center. On panel 225. Circuit breaker. Flight bus, main A and main B closed. CB, CTE, main A and main B closed. On panel 4, telecom group 1, AC 1. And telecom group 2 to AC 2. On panel 3, S-band normal transponder to primary. We want to take power, SCE to normal, and power, PMP to normal. And up telemetry command reset to reset and then normal. On panel 2, up telemetry, CMC to accept. On panel 275, circuit breaker, flight post landing, main A and main B closed. And configure for COM on panel 6, 9, and 10.
And 10 doesn't exist in my game. It's for audio here, so.
Panel 5, circuit breaker, IMU, main A and main B, closed. Circuit breaker, optics, main A and main B, closed. CB, GNN, power, AC1 and AC2, closed. And the GNN power switch to AC2. Now we want to perform the CMC power-up for the CSM GNC checklist. G2-2. Perform the EMS check, step 32 of the entry book, page 1-4. Okay, now the ground is going to give you a P27 update at EI minus 2 plus 15. That's a time that you need to be configured to accept telemetry. And what they're going to give you on a P27 update will be a clock increment, a state vector. They'll give you a verb 66. They'll give you 2 rest mats. There'll be an actual and a preferred and the entry target load. IMU power up, according to the GNC checklist, G2-1. And while you're there, you can do the optics power up on G2-3. On panel 229, circuit breaker timers, main A closed. That's correct. The next thing you'll do will be to set the mission timer. And what we've done is to only turn on the mission timer on the MDC. Okay, now we're getting ready to start the alignment sequence. And are you familiar with the general sequence of events we're going to use, Jack?
How do you mean? We're going to make an alignment on the moon and on the sun. Other than that, I didn't get any. I wasn't on the headset when the general information was passed up, so if there was any more than that, I didn't get it.
Okay, basically that's correct. Let me just run through it hand-waving type for a minute, and then I'll read you the steps. I think it'll make more sense. The scheme is that the limb can fly to a set of ball angles that will point your optics at the moon. Now, any time, in any attitude that we happen to be at, if you can look in the telescope and recognize star patterns sufficient that you believe you can make an alignment all on your own, that's the place we'd like to break off and let you go ahead and take over with your own alignment. If you need to go on, we'll maneuver, take a look at the moon, we'll take a mark there, and we'll then maneuver with the limb, FDAI angles again, and take a look at the sun. And get yourself another mark on the sun, and that'll complete the alignment. Now the alignment scheme is that we're going to give you a set of angles that you can course align the ball to when the limb is pointing you at the moon. Now this set of angles will agree with the rest mat that you have in as a nominal rest mat in your CMC. You can course align to that, set a drift flag and a rest mat flag, and you'll have a good platform. And we'll be within a couple of degrees of a good alignment. And if we had to, we could break off at this point and go ahead with an entry. However, in an attempt to get a good platform, we're going to have you then do a P52 option 1. And what you're going to find in the option 1 slots is the entry rest mat. You'll come up with the noun 22 values, and we intend to go ahead and course align the ball to the entry rest mat attitude, and then we'll go ahead and take marks through a normal P52 sequence.
Okay, well, let me ask a question. The limb maneuvers to a set of moon viewing angles. Okay, at this time I'm going to do a P52, is that right, with the planet option?
The first thing we're going to do is to course align the platform and get it inertial based on the rest mat that you have in the present slots inside the CMC. We'll then go and do a P52, option 4, option 1. Now the limb will maneuver to the Jettison attitude. Okay, and then the limb will go to a max deadband attitude hold in the Jettison attitude. The next thing I'll do is continue the power-up procedures. Panel 275. Have a circuit breaker, main A. Bat bus A, closed. And circuit breaker, main B, bat C, closed. Now we're up to EI minus 1 plus 30. And at this time we're going to proceed with the closeout and hatch installation. Now let me give you some plumbing switches here. Let's take the surge tank oxygen valve to on. Take the main regs to open. And the water and glycol tank pressure, the pressure valve and the relief valve to both. And the emergency cabin pressure valve to both. And the suit demand regs to both. Okay, now we're going to panel 5. Circuit breaker, ECS, transducers, pressure group, 1 and 2, main A and main B. That's 4 circuit breakers, closed. Okay, now circuit breaker ECS, transducers, temperature, main A and main B. That's 2 of them, closed. On panel 4, primary ECS glycol pumps 1 to AC 1. Then we'll finish going back to the tunnel vent and verify the LEM CM delta P and make sure it's been holding pressure. The next thing I want to read off is EI minus 1 plus 20. We'll go to panel 7, BMAG number 1 power to warm up. And at EI minus 1 plus 10, we'll perform SCS power up per the checklist, page G2-4. Okay, on panel 4, suit compressor number 2 to AC 1. Spacecraft control to SCS. And your manual attitude switches as you desire. We're coming up on jettison of the LEM, so it's just like separation. And we'll do a GDC align. Rotation control power direct, 1 and 2, main A / main B. Okay, at EI minus 1 hour, we're going to be doing the LEM jettison. So just prior to that, we want to do a P47. All right, after we've done that, we want to get panel 8, sequential pyro arm, 2 of them, on. All right, the next thing is CSM LEM final set, 2 of them, on up. Now we're going back to panel 8. And it's sequential pyro arm, 2 of them to safe. That's correct. And go back to poo. All right, and now it's time to configure for single ring. That's right, and since you're still an hour from EI, I guess it wouldn't hurt to use minimum impulse or something like that rather than the DAP. At least not till you get a little closer down. The DAP loads for you later. And as soon as you've gotten yourself all set up with a good control mode, we want to maneuver to the entry attitude. And we show EI minus 55, which really means when you get to the entry attitude, we have a sextant star check for you. And that'll be on the pad. Okay, and after you've got it parked wherever you want it, we'll turn the optics power off and stow the optics. The next thing we'll do is to initialize the EMS, and that's on entry checklist, page 2-1, step number 2. Now we're coming up on EI minus 45 minutes. And we'll give you an entry pad and a final state vector. Now we're going to perform what we call the moon check. Okay, the next item on the checklist here is an EI minus 40. We're going to panel 7, and it's BMAG number 2 power to warm up. Now I'd like to verify the surge tank and repress packages are on. On panel 5, circuit breaker, environmental control system, wastewater, urine duct heater, 2 of them closed. Suit compressor, number 2 to off. All right, now we're at EI minus 30. Sequential logic, that's 2 of them, to on, up. Panel 7, the BMAG number 2 power to on. And then FDAI power to both. And we want to activate the primary evaporator.
Okay, activate the primary evaporator. All this time, Ken, what have we been getting our cooling? Right now, I think we have the radiators at full to bypass.
That's correct. We started out that way, and we turned the glycol pumps on, and we're just circulating it internally. And we're counting on the command module being a heat sink. It's pretty cold-soaked, and looks like this is good enough. You got some relatively low heat loads, and we'll keep watching the temps, and if we need it, well, we'll start the evaporator early.
Okay, that sounds good.
Do you believe it's cold up there?
Yes, we used to call the command module the bedroom, and it's now the refrigerator.
Okay, just don't call it the reefer. Okay, at about EI minus 19, we get back into the standard entry checklist on page 2-2, where it starts with P61. Okay, Jack. Now those are the timeline notes I had for you. Hate to tell you this, but I also have a couple of corrections to make to the entry checklist. They aren't corrections, they just are pieces of the entry checklist which will correspond to what I've already read to you. And I'm ready to go on that whenever you are. Jack, you're starting to sound like an LMP.
I think I'm probably the only CMP that's ever witnessed a lamp burn from inside the lamp in space flight.
I hope it stays that way. Okay, Jack, we're starting on page 1-1. Okay, down in the middle of the page on line 9, we're just going to strike out the activate VHF for comm checks, and line 10, verify the DSE. We're going to leave the DSE off. That's to save power, as is the VHF activation. Okay, on page 1-2, at minus 2 hours, there's a title logic sequence check, and we're deleting that entire sequence. That's included in what I read up to you. That's correct. And delete lines 23, 24, and 25. That means the maneuver to super circ entry attitude, everything below that is deleted. That's correct. You got ahead of me. All right, on line 29 on page 1-3, we're going to put in a time of minus 0055. That's the time we gave you for the boreside check. Okay, on the top of page 1-4, where it said 1 hour and 15 minutes next to line 32, we're going to change that to minus 2 hours and 30 minutes. Okay, down at the bottom of the EMS entry check, right there where we are, the bottom line now reads EMS mode to standby. Well, just above that, I'd like to remind you to put a remark, do not initialize the range to go. This is because you're going to come into the EMS entry check, you're going to run through all these things, then we're going to remove power from the EMS. And just didn't want you to get ahead of yourself and initialize the entry parameters, because you'll lose them when we power up. And after we go EMS mode to standby, I'd like for you to add circuit breaker EMS2 to open. On the top of the next page, where it says secondary water evap, just keep in mind we don't plan to use the secondary evaporators unless the primary fails. On line 35 on page 1-5, next to command module RCS preheat, the time is now minus 6:30. All right, still on page 1-5, line 37. The time is now minus 6:10. And now let's go to page 1-6. And about a third of the way down, it shows panel 275, CB main A, bat C close. We want to strike off that line, the next two lines. So we're going to strike out main A, bat C close, main B, bat C close, and DC indicator, main B. That's correct. Now under panel 8, it tells you to close all circuit breakers except, and I have 4 additions. The first one is CB service module, RCS heaters, quad Charlie, main B, Okay, and the same thing for service module RCS heaters quad delta, main A, open. That's correct. And circuit breaker EMS, that's 2 of them, open. All right, and the last is the circuit breakers for SBS gauging, 4 of them, open. And let's go back to page 1-6, line 41. Let's put in a time minus 4:40. On page 2-1. Line number 2, put in a time of minus 55 minutes. Okay, and the first thing you want to do under EMS initialization is circuit breakers, EMS, that's 2 of them, to close. Alright, line 4, or step 4, where it shows CMRCS check, that occurs at minus 4:30. Alright, under CMRCS checks, the 4th line down says manual attitude 3 to minimum impulse. We'll have to use Excel command, and the reason for that, Jack, is we don't have the SCS powered up, so there's no minimum impulse generator. That's correct. And on the same page, 2-1, strike out the last 3 lines, starting with RCS transfer to service module. Okay, let's flip to page 2-2 and strike out the first 2 lines. Now we're right below that, it says separation checklist. So we're going to just delete that whole thing that's included in the notes I gave you. Okay, and at the bottom of the page, step number 1, that'll be at EI minus 19 minutes, and we're off and running through a normal sequence of events.
Okay, that sounds good. I guess you've run this thing. Is it a comfortable timeline? Any areas where you had problems with?
Jack, it is very comfortable. We've run it several times now, and in fact it's being run right now again. And we've run it both here in Houston and at the Cape. The only place where you might find that you need to stay ahead of things is during the platform alignment period when you're getting ready to close out the limb. And then once you get into the command module and jettison the limb, you're back on a very comfortable time. And of course we'll be watching you. Anything we can do, like keeping track of time for you, we'll remind you of that as we go along.
Yeah, that'd be good, Ken.
Let's look at the GNC book.
Okay, ready to copy?
Go to page 2-1. Okay, Jack, the second line under IMU Powerup says SDAI power to both, and we're going to make that a 1. The reason we're doing that is, again, to conserve power. There's no reason to drive the second FDAI before we get some information to put on it. And the last one I have for you is on page 2-4. Okay, under the SDS Powerup, the first line says Auto RCS Select 16 to off. Okay, you can just delete that part. On the 5th line, it says Circuit Breaker SCS Logic Power. That's really Logic Bus, 4 of them, to close. The Delta V CG is not important since we're not burning the engine. The Signal Conditioner Driver Bias Power lists 2 to AC1. We're going to make that just 1 of them. Make it Signal Condition Driver Bias Power 1 to AC1. The BMAG Power, which is the 3rd line from the bottom, says BMAG Power 2 on. We're going to make that just 1. Bring up number 1. And we'll make FDAI Power number 1. And the last line, Auto RCS Select 16 Enable, you can strike that off. And replace it with BMAG Mode 3 of them to rate 1. That's correct. You've got them all, Jack. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. This does it, huh?
Yes, sir. Okay, Jack. It looks like we've closed up the loose ends. There's, amazingly enough, out of all that stuff, it looks like we only generated one question on the floor, and we'll research that one. We'll even let you guess what it might have been. If you have any questions after you mull it over, why, we're always available. Just ask us what you're thinking about.
Okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to wait till the LEM people get theirs, and then we're going to discuss it, coordinate things here, and make sure that we don't have any interface problems. And if we have any questions, we'll be coming back at you.
We did run the thing integrated, so we think we've got all the little surprises ironed out.
I hope so, because tomorrow's examination time.
Right.
Ken, this is Jim.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate the work you've done, and Jack says it's going to be hard to beat his record about saving SMRCS fuel all the way there and back.
I can't do much about that. Some people will do anything to set a record.
Hey, Jack, we'll give you this battery charging backup procedure, and then Deke says you got to get some sleep. Going to need it tomorrow.
Okay, I'm ready to copy the backup procedure.
Panel 3, battery charge off. Next, AC inverter, inverter 2 off. Panel 5, main bus tie, bat B/C to bat B/C. It's up position. Panel 250, circuit breaker bat A, power entry / post landing to open. Circuit breaker bat B, power entry post landing open. Panel 5, CB battery charger, bat B charge open. Now that gets you back to the place where you can back out of the big battery charging procedure, which you have.
Yes, I do, Vance.
We request that you go ahead and finish out the back out completely till you get to square one. Over.
This is the backout procedure
Here's the class.
that
Go
was
ahead,
read out.
Do you have any more updates for us?
We've still got LEM updates, but we strongly recommend that you and Jack work as hard as you can at sleeping for about the next 5 hours. Fred can handle it.
Okay, that's what we'll do. We'll put Fred on watch here, and Jack and I will take it easy. And if Fred copies the LEM updates, then we'll all start from fresh point.
You bet.
Okay, so that completes the entry procedures for the CSM and somewhat the LM. There's a big chunk of procedures missing in terms of the LEM procedures, which will be similar to this. However, this is going to be done by Fred while the others are sleeping. So if you're interested in learning what they were, I would recommend you to go in to the Apollo 13 page of the Apollo Flight Journal, where good people who has made this has done a lot of research and work to describe it all up. So on the Apollo Flight Journal, Day 6, Part 3, Worn Out Crew. and you can read through the procedures there. As mentioned initially, the procedures that were just read up to you and the LEM procedures are going to be accessible through a runnable checklist available in a mission where they are required. So with that, this completes the mission. I'll see you in the next one.